So once again, I'm with my boy Sai, and we're going to be talking about Emu. But this time, it's really warranted because we finally got to see what Emu looks like and sounds like in the anime. You know, recently in that episode where he kills, or she kills Cobra. So now that we have all this information, I kind of want to go over all of the stuff that we've talked about with Emu so far. Because, you know, there's plenty of videos that we've made talking about Emu. This is going to be another one. But like I said, we can go over what we've talked about before and how it might be true now. So the first thing is Emu's voice. I don't want to influence your decision, but what do you think about Emu's voice?
Yeah, Emu's voice, man. I love the robotic sound of it. You can't really distinguish the gender, right? Like, it's a weird mix of, like, oh, you could see a guy, you could see a girl. Personally, I would even be happy if this is their real voice. Like, even if we get the unsilhouetted version of Emu, I'd be cool if this is just what they sound like in general. But base level, though, it's very robotic, which I think makes sense, too, considering the fact that during the Void Century, we learned that the Ancient Kingdom had technology better than Egghead. So it's like, oh, like, maybe they had voice changers back then. Maybe Emu has, I don't know, some mechanical implants, you know? I think that'd be pretty cool. It doesn't explain their figure though, because they still are shaped really weirdly. But yeah, the voice is pretty sick.
I agree. It would be cool if that's just their voice and that's what they always sound like. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I mean, if they're like in their Zoan form, then yeah, sure. But base form, maybe, maybe not. But I'm inclined to think that Emu is a woman now. I mean, we've always been talking about that, at least that I have. But the voice, I think, sealed the deal. And it almost makes me think that that's why they made Emu's voice distorted like that. Because it just straight up sounds like a woman. So they're trying to, like, not, you know. I mean, of course, that might not be the case. But I think it is.
We've also talked about a lot of theories about Emu being Lily even, right? Like, oh, maybe Emu has Lily's body or something of the sort. And the thing with Emu's voice, like, there's so many things you could draw from it. And another thing it reminds me of, outside of it being robotic, is that this sounds like somebody being possessed. So maybe if that's the case with Emu, maybe Emu is a woman, maybe it's a Lily. You know, maybe Emu's soul is possessing Lily. There's so many ways you could spin this. And it's kind of crazy because in the latest episode of One Piece, which obviously the anime isn't, like, quote, canon necessarily, but we got more shots of their flower room, and the flowers you see in the room, it's confirmed not to be lilies, which is actually that was a big theory back in the day. Like, oh, what flowers does Emu have, right?
They're chrysanthemums, or however you say it, right?
Yes,
chrysanthemums.
Like it's hard to tell because it's like black and white, and you know the shots are very saturated. They could be that. It could be even tulips. But lilies is definitely out of the question at this point. Now that we have like more shots of the room. Unless the anime just flubs it, right? There's also that possibility.
So, speaking of Emu in the flower room, the size of Emu. I mean, I know it was always there, but it was made more apparent now, I think. It's very small, right?
Yeah. Emu is very, very dainty. I feel like if you saw an emu across the street, you'd probably like pick on him. You'd probably push him down the stairs or something. Yeah, Emu's really small, but when they transform, they're big. They were like the biggest monster transformation out of the Gorosei.
Yeah, we could get into that now, but I just want to say that we're describing the traits of a woman here. But anyway, so yeah, you are right. Emu's transformation is huge. But not only is it huge, now it seems even bigger than what is even implied in the anime, given how big the Gorosei were in their transformed states at Egghead, right?
Oh yeah, like dude, the Gorosei were bigger than Emmet. Like in that one double spread, like dude, Emmet was like a little kid in comparison to all the Gorosei jumping off the coast of Egghead. So yeah, like Emu is a massive thing, and we didn't really get this context that well in the manga, but in the anime they showed that, you know, in one scene Emu's like, you know, climbing down the stairs, you see the hands, and then the next minute when they're chasing Sabo and Cobra, they're like bouncing up and down like Pac-Man. And it's like, yo, like where did the hands go? Where are the feet, you know? Like what is this thing?
Yeah, so the anime did it very well. Great sequence, I gotta put that out there. And still don't know if that solidifies that it's a dragon, because in the last Emu video we talked about, you know, possibly being like a Western style dragon. When Emu does eat the fire, it still holds up. I would say it looks
Yeah.
even more Dragon-esque in the anime sequence than it does in the manga panel. But the other directions and angles that we see of it makes it look just, like an ambiguous monster. Also with its tail. It could be the dragon tail, or it could be like a devil tail, or I don't know, some kind of unique creature. But Oda doesn't really do, unique stuff like that. That's not really a knock on him. He's very, adaptive, So given
Yeah.
that the Gorosei are all known yokais, I assume Imu will follow suit with that to some extent.
Yeah, Oda is the type of guy that he would watch like a movie or read an article or see a cool story, and then he'd twist it and bring it into One Piece. I mean, that's true for everything we've seen, right? Even Gear 5th, Oda said the main inspiration was Tom and Jerry. I am leaning towards the cartoon devil aspect of Imu more now that we have that anime episode where they're bouncing up and down, because it does remind me of Luffy when he's fighting Rob Lucci. Luffy bounces into the ground, then he jumps up and it's just a giant head trying to chomp him down. That's kind of what that scene reminded me of, watching Imu chase Sabo and Cobra. And it's like, yeah, like out of Oda's interview talking about Tom and Jerry, he said the hard part about drawing Luffy's Gear 5th fights is that Luffy is the only one doing shenanigans. He said the reason why Tom and Jerry works is because you have two of them and they can both do the same thing. So it's like, if Imu is a cartoon devil, if Imu has, abilities like Luffy but just darker, then I think that could fit really well. And that could be like, I wouldn't say one of the greatest fights in anime, but it would be one of the most unique fights.
I mean, it would be fun for sure, like Toon Force people going at it in a world where only they have that ability. Yeah, that would be really interesting. But to play devil's advocate to Imu appearing to be cartoony and devilish in this episode, while they do for sure. And I was thinking that at first when I saw it. I was like, that's really weird the way that Imu looks. And then I was thinking, am I reading too much into it? And then I was looking at the Gorosei. And the Gorosei are similar kind of to Imu in this sequence, in the way that they're depicted. And I, comparing what the Gorosei's silhouette looks like in this episode to what they actually look like in the manga, and it's like, if we do that for Imu, then things are going to be drastically different,
Oh, 100%. Like, dude, all of the Gorosei looked so goofy in that episode, and even in the manga they did too, right? But the thing with the manga, at least, is that we could kind of pick out what they were. There was nobody out there who got 5 for 5, but I saw some people get like the Itsumare one, which is pretty cool. But yeah, like Bakotsu, he just looked goofy. Jupiter the giant worm, he looked really goofy. And that's kind of how it is. And it makes me wonder, since Sabo was in that room, obviously he saw what they are. I wonder if we'll ever get a scene where when Sabo meets Luffy or meets Bonnie or somebody else, he's like, hey, by the way, Imu looks like this. He could probably draw it out, right? Like he could draw word for word and description for description what Imu looks like. And that's the craziest part. They're silhouetted to us, but Sabo saw them.
So to reverse devil advocate, back to it supporting the devil theory.
Yeah.
Sabo says, in this sequence, oh, I didn't know I was in hell. I'm paraphrasing, but he says something like that. So maybe he said that for a reason. Oh, Imu's the freaking devil.
Yeah, he looks up there and he just sees a devil on a throne, which is very, very typical, right?
Yeah.
When you think of all depictions of the devil, he's always sitting on his throne.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for our analysis of Imu in episode 11, 19, and 1120 maybe. But yeah, subscribe to Sai and all that stuff if you like the video, like it, and peace out.